Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Hey there, welcome to Grief to Growth. I'm Brian Smith, and if you're new here, I want to let you know this show exists because I believe that grief, as devastating as it is, doesn't have to be the end of your story. Here we explore loss, love, consciousness, and the possibility that the people we've lost aren't as gone as we fear. Whether you've been listening for years or this is your first episode, I'm glad you're here. Today, our guest is Kelly Edmondson. Kelly is a nurse, she's a shining light mother, and she's a grief counselor who looked at the way our culture handles loss, the flurry of flowers that arrive in the first week, then silence, and she decided to do something about it. And if you don't know what a shining light parent is, at Helping Parents Heal, we call parents who have lost children shining light parents because we believe our children are shining lights and that we can be also. And Kelly certainly is. Kelly is the founder of Timely Presence, a year-long grief support service built on a simple but profound truth. It's that people who are grieving need you the most, not at the funeral, but on the Tuesday in month 7 when everyone else has moved on. Drawing from her years as a trauma nurse and her own journey through loss, Kelly created something that didn't exist before, a way for friends and family to show up again and again throughout the first year, delivering meaningful, personalized gifts on the days that hit the hardest. In this conversation, we're going to talk about the first year of grief and why it's unlike anything else, and why so much of the support we offer is accidentally timed to miss the moments when it needed the most. Kelly will share what she's learned from the ER and from her own grief about what people are really asking for when they go quiet, why anniversaries and holidays can ambush even the most put together griever, and what it actually means to be present for someone whose world has collapsed. So if you've ever wanted to show up for someone you love who is grieving, but you didn't know how, or you were afraid of saying the wrong thing, this episode was made for you. And if you're the one who's grieving and you felt like the world moved on while you were still standing in the wreckage, I think Kelly's work is going to make you feel seen. If you'd like to continue this conversation after the episode, head over to grieftogrowth.substack.com. That's grief, the numeral 2, growth.substack.com. And there you'll find an article about today's discussion where you can comment and connect with me and with other listeners. So with that, let's get started and let's welcome Kelly Edmondson.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me on this show. I so appreciate the work that you're doing in this space and intimately understand your passion behind it. So I'm grateful to be here and share a little bit of my story.
Yeah, well, thank you. And right back at you, fellow Shining Light parent. I know that we were talking before we start recording. Our children's, passing has motivated us. But before we get into all the work that you're doing, tell me about your son.
Yes, so my son, my oldest child, Darius, Darius, absolute shining light. So he was born on Christmas Day.
Oh, wow.
I love to say he was actually a gift from the moment that he got here. And we grew up together. I had Darius very young. I was 18 when Mike and I had him. And, we grew up together. And the
Hmm.
bond that comes from that really is not able to be replicated, right? With my later children, it's just different.
Mm.
And so Darius was just vivacious from the beginning. As a young mother, um, he was born with a benign tumor on his head, and they removed it at 8 months, and he became critically ill from that and was
Mm.
admitted into an ICU. And so that was the first time that I really had someone that was close to me on the verge of death. And the clinicians were brilliant, and he was able to rebound. But that bonded us very uniquely, and also inspired me to become a
Hmm.
nurse.
Hmm.
And So the nurses, the care they took of him in the pediatric ICU was unbelievable. And so Darius was a rambunctious child. He was certainly a rambunctious teenager. Um, and settled out as we do as adults. And so as a young adult, he was a student and graduate at a college in Columbus, Ohio, Columbus State Community College. He graduated from there with a focus on real estate. He became an employee of the college, and was, really living in his dream, helping first-time homeowners realize that moment of signing the paperwork. And
Hmm.
um, on January 3rd of 2023, Darius had spent the day at his the father's, just kind of a post New Year celebration, and my husband and I were on a cruise ship. My younger son called me kind of repeatedly, which was odd. And when I answered the phone, I knew immediately something was wrong.
Mm.
And so he was in charge of my new puppy, actually. And so I said, Mason, what happened to Zeus? And he said, Mom, I don't know how to tell you this. And I think back on the fact that a 22-year-old was charged with delivering the message to me that
Yeah.
Darius was dead.
Mm.
And so I was at sea with no stop the next day, and a son and daughter back home alone in Orlando, Florida, where we had moved to, um, and a child who I could do nothing for. And so that really began my journey with grief and um, child loss, which is just very unique.
Yeah, it is. And we all go through different circumstances and they're all unimaginable. And I actually have friends whose daughter passed while they were on a cruise and they got that call and couldn't get back for like it was several days. So that feeling of helplessness of you have your other people here, your other children to take care of, and you can't get home. That's just unimaginable.
It really is just, and it was just after the new year. So I was surrounded by people who were having the celebration of their lives.
Yeah.
And I was really in this parallel universe. And so he had a history of epilepsy
Hmm.
and did die peacefully at home in his sleep. But I was literally a world away.
Yeah. So he had epilepsy. Was it controlled or was it managed or was he having seizures?
Yeah, he got diagnosed his the year he graduated from high school.
Hmm.
One day the kids called and said he's acting strange, and um, my younger son said he's foaming at the mouth. We'll call 911 and I'm on my way. And so
Yeah.
when I got to the hospital, he had new onset seizures, really no known cause,
Wow. Yeah.
um, but had been controlled off and on. So it had been a 10-year diagnosis for him, controlled off and on.
Hmm.
Interestingly, the year before he died, he was driving on a highway in Columbus, Ohio, and actually had a seizure and drove off the highway,
Wow.
and landed in an embankment. Now, my ex-husband called me, and I am a trauma ICU nurse by background, so I am
Right.
ready to fly. He called back and he said, not a broken bone, no head injury. He's fighting the ventilator. This is all in the ED.
Oh wow. Wow.
I think he's going to be okay. And so he had actually escaped, significant harm the year
Right.
before, but that last year was pretty troubled with the seizures.
Yeah. So being a trauma nurse, I assume you've been around,
Mhm.
death and stuff.
Yeah.
How do you think that informed you dealing with your own grief of losing, losing someone? You saw other people go through that. How does it impact you when you go through that?
Yeah, my first coming out of orientation as a brand new nurse, my first Christmas at work, I just out of orientation. I had a son whose birthday was Christmas Day,
Yeah.
and I heard overhead trauma level 1 in the ER. And so I knew that I was going to be admitting a trauma patient. When the ER called me, they told me it was an 18-year-old a young man who had driven on black ice
Mm,
and ran into a pole.
mm,
And she said, "Your job's to keep him alive until his parents get here."
mm,
So I was a 25-year-old new nurse, and the young man rolled out to the unit, and I, I put my all into doing what I could so his mother could say goodbye. I was tending to him and preparing him, and I felt someone behind me, and I turned, and it was the parents.
mm.
Um, at that moment, he stopped, and we all knew that it was a terminal situation. So, the mother collapsed, and innately, I understood that my job now was to shift from caring for him to caring for her.
Mm, mhm.
And so that's what I did. I spent the next hour tending to these parents as a 25-year-old who had no concept of this type of loss.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was my calling. And so over the years, I really became the person known in the hospitals. I worked trauma ICU and ER as
Mm,
the person who was first call for traumas. I had a way of caring selflessly for the families.
mhm.
And, I had told dozens of families that their child, their spouse, their brother was gone. Um, and I felt like I was very skilled at it, right? It was
Yeah.
something that many clinicians struggle with. It was just something that I felt like I could give them peace. And so, I felt like I understood grief,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it happened to me. And what I knew was in those initial moments, how someone shares that news with you, how empathic they are, how clear and transparent they are, right? Not dancing around words. The real, I'm sorry, he did not make it. Those things matter. I
Mhm.
knew all of those. What I didn't understand is what happens when someone walks out of the hospital.
Yeah.
The grief is so much more than the notification.
Yeah. Well, but I want to get into that, but before we do, let's talk about like how do you break the news to someone? You gave some examples there. When my daughter passed away, when Shayna passed away, my daughter Kayla was on vacation and she was with some friends. So I had to call and first tell my friends that she was with that Shayna had passed, and then I had to tell Kayla, and I just had no idea how to do that.
I think what I've learned through clinical time, and now I've become a grief counselor.
Mm-hmm.
And so, really, the psychology around this is that it's important to recognize that someone, you need to know where they are, right? So, you're making a phone call to someone, and sometimes we have to do that in the hospital.
Right.
Uh, but where are you? So, driving's not the right time to do that, right? So, you figure out the context and the environment that someone is in, or
Mm-hmm.
you plan that. You sit when you are in person with them, you're able to sit with them. Um, you tell them, you prepare them by saying things like, um, someone, you have to read the cues of people. There are people you can put a hand on the shoulder. There are people that you can, and you tell them, I am sorry for the news that I'm going to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
Couching that begins to prepare them that this is something that they don't want to hear.
Right.
But then you have to be honest. Words like um, he's transitioned, I'm sorry about the outcome. They're not clear enough. Denial is a very easy place to go.
Mm-hmm.
And questioning is a very easy place to go. You have
Mm-hmm.
to immediately let someone know that your mom is no longer here. I'm sorry, but your mom died this morning. We
Yeah.
did all that we could. Certainly, we made her comfortable. And I understand that this is devastating news, right? You also have to couch it with this isn't easy
Right.
information.
Right.
And then you begin asking people their preference, right? Would you like a moment to sit with that? Can I sit here with you? Would you like me to call the chaplain?
Yeah.
Is there someone else in the family that you were like, and the most honorable thing you can do in the hospital setting is allow someone time and space uninterrupted with their loved one, right?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want to allow you time to
Yeah.
say goodbye to your mom in the way that you'd like to do that the best. Um, but it's time, right? You've got to be able to carve the time. Hospitals are busy places,
Right.
and you've got to be able to carve the time to have a meaningful discussion with someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Because as I said, it's something that, I never dreamed of, never thought about, and, had to do that with Kayla. And then I had to do it again when my friend Mike passed away like a year or so ago, and calling up one of our other good friends and telling him. So having that experience with having to tell my friends about Shayna and then having to tell Kayla over the phone, it gave me at least, I'd done it before. And for most of us that again we don't think about this. So it's something maybe we can kind of prepare ourselves for the types of words to use and how to break it to someone. So you experienced all this trauma, you witnessed all this grief. What did you learn about grief when you finally got home and I guess when you walked away? For me, it was walking away from Shayna's body in the hospital. When they told me she had passed, and then having to make that turn and walk away. That was the moment for me when it really hit. What was the moment for you?
Yeah, for me, I think initially it was just shock. What do you mean he's dead? What do you mean
Yeah,
he's gone? And because I was so far away, there was
yeah.
no visual confirmation of that, right?
Hmm.
For me, when I landed in Ohio to begin preparing for the services, um, and his father called me and said, "Can you go buy his socks and underwear for the funeral?"
Mm,
And I thought, what? How do you pick the final clothes for your child?
yeah.
How do you pick that? So that was a defining moment. But the most difficult moment for me in that whole acute phase was, we had an open casket, but I asked for it to be closed during the service.
Hmm.
And I did not watch them close it.
Yeah.
I just could not do that. But when I left the funeral home, I knew that I would be coming back there in about 2 weeks because at the funeral, people from Columbus State came and said they were renaming an annual award in his honor.
Oh,
And so
okay.
I would be coming back to give that award.
Hmm.
And so I knew I'd be coming back in 2 weeks. And so even though I was leaving, it wasn't final for me because there was still what I will call a celebration of his life that was planned in 2 weeks.
Okay.
That 2 weeks was late January, and there was a snowstorm in Ohio. So I flew up and they called and said they were canceling the
Oh,
service.
wow.
And that for me, that to date is the most devastating day that I have. It
Hmm.
it was my closure date and
Yeah.
I never got it. And at that moment, it felt real that he was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Those moments are just, I just got chills as you were saying that, because there is that moment, where it hit, well, it's not a moment, I guess. They're moments, it hits you over and over again. Like you said, like I was saying earlier, when I left the hospital, I remember the morning of Shayna's service, driving to go get a shirt to wear to the service, and I was with my cousins and stuff, and it's just something that's just so surreal about, doing that for your children because we never expect to do that.
No, no. And and everyone around, there's just a heaviness in the air too, right?
Hmm.
Because to your earlier point, the people around you don't know what to say.
Right. Yeah. So that first year of grief, and I know that what you do, your timely presence, is about helping people with that first year of grief, both the griever and the people who are around the grievers, because we don't know what to do, we don't know what to say, and what was your experience like the first few weeks, the first couple of months, that timeline of that first year?
Yeah. So, I really just holed up at home. I was in the cocoon of my house, right? My
Hmm.
my husband and I. My son spent a fair amount of time with us. And I had a good friend who told me, I'm going to release you from the need to answer phone calls,
Mm,
to respond to texts. This is your time.
hmm.
Um, and she's pretty bossy. It's kind of good sometimes to have a bossy friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And she really helped me with that. And so I was able to just sit and, I had plants that people had purchased around him. I will say they died, which is another trauma, but in that moment they were alive.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I spent time really just me um, with me. And days I didn't feel like coming out of my room, I just didn't come. Days I didn't feel like answering the phone, I just didn't answer the phone.
Hmm.
And for me, that wasn't spiraling. It was a way for me to heal because there were moments when I wanted to talk about it, and there were moments when I wanted to feel nothing. I just I want to look at this wall and feel like I don't owe anyone an explanation. I don't have to answer how I am. I don't have to explain what happened to him. I
Hmm.
just want to do nothing. And so I had people in my life who gave me the freedom to do that. And so I appreciated that. As I prepared a few months later to go back to work, two things happened that really set me off, I'll say.
Hmm.
One was there was a knock at the door. I had a delivery, and it was wrapped in all this biohazard tape, and it just an obscene presentation. Those were remaining ashes. We had some jewelry and artwork made from his ashes, and they
Hmm.
were the remaining ashes that came from the funeral home. The presentation was terrible. It was just absolutely um, terrible. We were
Hmm.
coming out of COVID. I felt like the guy should be in mask,
Yeah.
uh, and then the second thing was the day I was going back to work, I got a letter from the funeral home, um, an envelope from the funeral home. And I thought, they know it. They know that I'm going back to work. They're just sending words of continued condolences. This is so sweet. And I opened it, and it was his autopsy report.
Oh, yeah.
No warning, there was no right, it just the autopsy report. Now, I'm a nurse, right? So I understood everything that was in there.
Mm.
It was the most cold clinical experience that I've ever had. And I thought to myself, certainly the death care industry should do better than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, And so there were events like that that just
Hmm.
had me say, what we're doing is not enough. But the real thing that made me say I am going to do something different was Mother's Day. So 5 months after his death is
Hmm.
Mother's Day. Very much like the cruise. I am in this day that will never look the same for me. And every commercial you see, every store you go in, it's Happy Mother's Day. There's um, a celebration while you are living in this, kind of parallel purgatory.
Exactly.
And I said, the whole week was dark. And then suddenly, my mom, my sister, my niece flew in from Ohio. My daughter and my son's girlfriend came over, and we spent the weekend celebrating Darius. Stories about him, uh, reminders about him, laughing about things that he did.
Mm.
And it made what would starting to be the darkest week ever. It added light to that. And I thought everyone should have it because the reality is he's not coming back, but he's still my son.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still his mother, and this day still should honor our relationship.
Yeah.
And they gave that to me, which is really what was the inspiration for Timely Presence.
Oh, wow. Now, I have to ask you, how do you feel about bereaved Mother's Day?
You know, so I personally choose to celebrate Mother's Day because I'm still a mom, he's still my child, and that love still lives.
Hmm.
I feel like, though, how people express their grief, how they express their love, and those relationships that have they've lost or have forever changed can be unique. And so I think there's space for bereaved Mother's Day. For me, I choose to live on um, the traditional Mother's Day because my love for him, the relationship we had, and the memories I have of that are so vivid that I honor him alongside my other two children.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's interesting because the word bereaved even I'm part of helping parents heal, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the organization. But it's an organization for parents who have lost children. And I said in the introduction, we call ourselves Shining Light Parents, which was
Mhm.
coined by one of our members who's a military person, and she lost her stepdaughter. And people that had lost children to the military, they call them Gold Star parents. So Shining Light Parents is kind of a thing, play on that. And um, the word bereaved, even we used to be in our like our bio, our ethics was bereaved, and our founder Elizabeth's like, I don't like the word bereaved, and we're like, well, we start off bereaved, but we don't want to stay there.
Mhm.
And we believe in continuing a relationship with our kids. And when I was hearing you talk about celebrating Mother's Day, I understand the reason why people have that, and I understand the carve out and everything, but I want to celebrate Father's Day on Father's Day because I'm still
Mhm.
Shayna's father. I
Mhm.
don't need a special day because that whole thing just brings up another like, oh, another reminder that they're not here with you. And in my belief, they are still with us, just in a different way.
That's right. That's right. And it makes you a different kind of dad, and you're not, right? You're
Right.
right.
Right,
That's
right.
right.
I'm still Shayna and Kayla's father, just the
That's
same.
right.
There's no differentiation. So, again, I don't want to, for people that celebrate that, that's fine. When it comes up on Facebook, I just don't say anything. I'm not saying you
Mhm.
shouldn't do it. You should do whatever you want. But for me and for my wife, we're like, we'll just take normal Mother's Day and Father's Day because we want to, and I love the name of your movement or your company, Timely Presence. It's about presence. Our kids are they're still present with us. So you go through this first year of grief, and you notice some things that you would like to see done better. And so, what were those things?
Yeah, so I think people don't know what to say, so they don't say anything, right? So I've been
Hmm.
turned back to work. At this point now, I am a health care executive. And so, I come back and there were people who said all the right things. I am so sorry for your loss. I don't know what to say, but
Hmm.
I'm sorry, right? Very
Hmm.
appropriate. And then there's people who acted like nothing happened. Nothing,
Hmm.
right? That
Yeah.
that I just disappeared for 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, and a couple things. A, that's changed my relationship with them. Um, um, but B, I began to understand people just don't know what to do, and so they do nothing. Um, or they think, well, you've been gone for 3 months, so you went through all that. You're back now. You're
Right.
back,
Yeah. You're back. Yeah.
right? And so you're ready to go. And much like Kayla is your father, and wherever you go, she's your father. Shayna's your daughter too, right? And so you bring
Right.
both of them.
Yeah.
Um, into every room that you walk in, every new relationship that you have, every new experience, including work. And what I found was people either didn't know how to show up and so backed away from it, or didn't know that they should show up.
Yeah.
And both of those things are problems for people who are going through the grief journey.
Yeah, I want to talk about both sides of this because this comes up a lot in the work that I do. The awkwardness around grief. We don't know what to say, and I tell you, I still don't know what to say. I've been doing this. I've been doing this work for 6 or 7 years now. Shayna passed 10 years ago. There is no right thing to say.
Mhm.
And there, it is also kind of a landmine because, or like you feel like you're walking through a field of landmines because if we say the wrong thing, sometimes the griever will like really take offense to it. So,
Mhm.
because I've heard a lot of people in grief say that just really made me angry, and I'm like, we're all going through something that's new to us. We need to give each other, I think, a little bit of grace. But it's helpful if we can tell some people things like things not to say, like God needed another angel.
Mhm.
I've never heard anybody say that they found that useful.
Yeah. Or at least he was in his sleep. Um, or, none of those things. Or this one, at least you have other children,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Um,
yeah.
I, the other thing that I think people don't realize is offensive, is the question about how they died,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? And the reality is, early in my grief counseling, my grief counselor said, you're welcome to share that, right? You're welcome to share that, but people die all kinds of ways. People die,
Hmm.
um, and and sometimes, it's not that you want to share, but more importantly, there's judgment sometimes attached to that. The reality is, it changes not my love for them at all.
Yeah, yeah. That is really interesting too because Shayna passed in her sleep, and
Mhm.
it was from something with the heart is all we know, and we know she had a her condition called wolf white Parkinson's,
Mhm.
which caused well, the Hishner nurse, but she has that condition. We knew about it, but wasn't supposed to be fatal, wasn't dangerous. She wasn't on any medication. She had no restrictions, so we weren't expecting her to pass.
Mhm.
But I realized people are looking for an explanation, and I think it's kind of like they almost want insurance, like it's not going to happen to them. So they want, and I'm like, when I tell people I don't know, and I'm comfortable
Mhm.
with that, the coroner's report said one thing, her cardiologist said another thing, and people are like, did you dig into it? No, because it doesn't matter to
That's
me.
right.
It,
That's
it
right.
to me, it really doesn't matter. I know some people get all caught up in that. All I want to know is she didn't suffer, which she didn't. I don't need to know anything else.
That's right. It's exactly right. And my son also died in his sleep, but over time, I've met people who have lost children and from suicide, or have lost children from, many different things. And the
Hmm.
reality is, that can be a triggering question, but things that are safe are, I don't know what to say, but I'm sorry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's so easy to not be offended by that. Or, I can, we're thinking of you, we're praying for you.
Hmm.
Those things are benign, and sometimes they feel like not enough, but sometimes it's all you have. And I I will tell you, it's more than what many grieving people get at all.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other extreme, right? We have people that say things that are flippant, they don't really think about how they land, and then you've got the people who are scared to say anything at all.
Mhm.
And I've even had people say, "Well, I don't want to make you sad," or they'll say something and someone starts crying. They say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I made you think about them." It's like, I think about them all the time. You're not going to make me think about them.
That's right. And if you do recall the memory, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing them up. Someone asked me once, "Do you feel like your gifts bring back the death to someone?" I said, "There's not a day I don't know that my son's dead. Not one day.
right,
I cannot forget that."
right.
But it's touching to know that someone else is also thinking of them, which, you just don't want your person to be forgotten, right?
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point when you really need to drive home with people. We don't want our person to be forgotten, and we certainly don't forget them. And and with timely presence, I know one of the things that in my experience, and I've talked to a lot of people who experienced this, is that okay, for the first 6 weeks, people are sending casseroles, people are asking if they can do things for you and everything. 3 months or so, everybody's gone back to their life, and you do feel like okay, what? What's next? So tell me how timely presence helps with this.
Yeah, so there's so much anticipatory grief in that first year, I think, to these events that I say can be triggering, right? So
Yes, yes.
that how am I going to feel on this first Father's Day? You don't know. I've not lived it. How am I going to do on her birthday? What's Christmas going to be like? And those were um, really challenging days for us. My son was born on Christmas and
Yeah,
died on January 3rd. So the entire holiday season for us looks different.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so what we do is we send gifts on those days that are predictable to be more challenging. Now, there is certainly truth that you will be walking down the street and you will see a young woman who looks like your daughter, walks like her, laughed like her, and that will be a trigger. That will
Hmm.
happen at infinitum. And thank God for those memories of her, right?
Right.
But we know that there are certain days that are just more difficult. The first wedding anniversary without your spouse, that first Mother's Day. And so what we do based on the relationship that the gift receiver has with the departed, we send a year's worth of gifts on all of those dates. And so they come at the right time. I realize that Darius's birthday is next week, and this wind chime will allow you to hear him
Hmm.
on more difficult days. And so it's just been art and science, talking to people. Tell me what kinds of memorial gifts you received that added value. Let's talk about the days that were difficult. And, we spent a lot of time kind of researching that and then
Mm-hmm.
built packages really based on those relationships. So we do one for spouses, um, we do one for parents,
Hmm.
we do one for friends and family. So, it catches a lot of people. And then we also do one for a group that's often forgotten. And those are families who have lost a child through miscarriage and stillbirth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
those losses can be devastating and they're under recognized and
Yeah.
underappreciated. And so we have packages that show up on Mother's Day for a mom that gave birth to a stillbirth child. She get something on the anniversary of the death because no, those are very difficult for people to recall and speak on.
Hmm.
And we stand in the gap for those
Yeah.
those families.
So what's some of the feedback you've gotten from people who have
Yeah.
sent the gifts and people who have received the gifts?
Yeah. So my favorite, the first gift that ever went out was to a mom who had had a stillbirth.
Hmm.
And her employer actually heard about our business, remembered that we were coming up on the year anniversary, and ordered. And so this woman received the first gift in that package, which is a crystal sun catcher on the anniversary of the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And what she said was, she walked out to her mail, darkest day she'd ever had, right? Because no one remembers this. No
Right.
one met the baby, so no one remembers this. She walked out to her mailbox. There was a package with a dove on it. She came back in the house. She opened it. She was by her window. And on the darkest day that she had, suddenly there were prisms dancing on her wall.
Mm.
And she said she felt like her quote was, God was in the details that day.
Yeah.
And so that was so affirming. But those are the kinds of messages that we receive. Spouses who say, I received for wedding anniversaries for a woman, we send preserved roses. They're bright red, they're shaped in a heart, they live 5 years. Um, and her husband always sent her roses on her anniversary, right? And so she received that. And she said, it was like Mike was sending me a hug from above.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I, all of the feedback from the recipients has been very similar. And
Yeah.
we've had the gift givers reach out and say, I didn't know what to do for my life. I didn't know what to do for my employee.
Right.
Or I was out of words for my friend. thank you for coming in. And then we send a note, obviously, of who it's from, but we also send a reminder to the person sending the gift so that they know,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
hey, Brian's wedding anniversary is next week, so that they can remember to check in, because it's not that people don't care. It's
Right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that okay, but we're all busy. We have
We're all
all have all
busy.
these different dates to keep in our minds and trying to, trying to keep the date of someone else's loss, a year later is
That's right.
it's not an easy thing to do. And it appeals to me about your service is that okay, I still remember the person, I care about them, I put the effort into it, but then I can kind of set it and forget it as, so to speak. But I love the reminder also. So I can also do a personal touch, right? So
That's right.
maybe a day before or a day after, I can give them a call.
That's right.
And because that's as important as getting the gift. But one of the biggest things in grief is we need our grief to be witnessed. We need other people to understand, to have some inkling of what we're going through. And those little things like that can just be so uplifting. And I love what you talked about with the one with the miscarriage, because that's not a date most of us are going to remember because it's not a birthday, it's kind of a death day, but we don't remember death days. So it's great to have that reminder.
Yeah. And so unilaterally, the feedback has been, it's actually been healing to me.
Hmm.
And this ongoing journey to be able to deliver to people, um, that the witnessing, the reaffirming, the presence,
Yeah.
on days when I think felt like they were going to be forgotten. And it's never the first gift, right? The first gift comes right after the funeral when you're getting many things,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it's the second, the
Right.
third, the fourth, right? People are overwhelmed by the ongoing commitment to, walking with them through the
Yeah.
journey.
So walk me through the process if I'm someone who's signing up for your service to send to someone else. What does it look like for me?
Sure. So we believe we've made it as simple as possible. You pick the relationship, and there's a couple of pieces of information we need: the name
Hmm.
of, the person we're memorializing, their date of birth, the date of death, and then, if they were married, we'd love the anniversary. If not, we will send things on Valentine's Day.
Okay.
If it's a parent-child relationship, we automatically calculate Mother's Day and Father's Day. We're able to do that.
Hmm.
And we ask for one photo, because the gift that comes on the anniversary of loss, the death day, is a beautiful, um, crystal photo keepsake. And so we ask for one photo, which can be uploaded anytime during the year. So we'll send reminders.
Okay.
Um, but those are the pieces of information that we get. Once we receive that, we take care of the rest. So you enroll them, it's a one-time payment, and for a year, you don't have to worry about it, and you know that your loved one is being properly cared for.
Okay. So I don't even have to choose the gifts. You've curated the gifts already.
We
Okay.
have, we have,
Yeah,
um,
again, it sounds like such a needed service for people because again, we don't know what to do. My wife and I, someone sent us wind chimes. I saw you have wind chimes as one of your gifts, and we're like, this is a great. So now every time someone passes away, we give them wind chimes because we've
yes,
got them, for her father and for Shayna. And when we sit on our deck and we hear the wind chimes, we think about them.
yeah,
So I think that's a really great gift. But the sun catchers, those are great too.
yeah.
And again, people, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to
Mhm.
send, and we were looking for things like to we want to care, but we also can't, really keep all these things in our minds. So that one time thing, I think, is a great service that you're offering.
Yeah, it's been healing, and it's really been based on both my lived experience and what I've learned about grief, both clinically and through grief counseling, but more importantly,
Hmm.
just from talking to people, right? Um, the first gift that comes is an engraved wooden memory box. And you're, why is that your first gift? Well, it's when you have all the things, right? So your spouse passes away, there are obituary, there's all kinds of documents and photos and things that are around It's a beautiful place to keep them stored
Hmm.
and protected. And it's very practical, but it's a gorgeous gift that can lay out on a coffee table or in a desk. None of them are obnoxious and say, this is a this is a grief gift.
Yeah, yeah,
They they fit into the decor, but I think through feedback and collaboration, we've been really thoughtful
yeah.
in um, the things that were selected.
Well, it's obvious to me you've done a great job because as you're talking through some of the gifts, after my daughter passed, a friend of mine took a little wooden box, round wooden box, and she painted the top of it with my Shayna's favorite color, which is purple. She painted this little scene on it, and it's to put in things. So I've got feathers in there, I've got dimes in there, things that I find, and I have it on my meditation altar for Shayna. That's one of the gifts that I remembered, from my friend that. And then like I said, the wind chimes, sun catcher, we've got a couple of sun catchers. So those are some of the gifts that have been really meaningful to us.
Mhm.
And as you said, they're not obnoxious. They're just like the one thing's in my bedroom on my meditation altar, the wind chimes are on my deck, and the sun catchers in the kitchen. I look at those and I think about Shayna. So those are great things. And people, we don't know what to send or what words to say, or maybe even what dates to choose. I mean, you've chosen some
Mhm.
very, powerful dates that we can remember. It's not just the anniversary and the birthday, but it is Mother's Day. And that first Mother's Day without a child is, I can't speak for Mother's Day, but I can speak for Father's Day.
Mhm.
It's devastating.
Mhm. Devastated. The first Christmas, right?
Yeah.
The holiday season, they look different.
Yeah.
And it's great. So, well, thanks, Brian. That's been very affirming that through your experience, both as all the work you're doing in grief, but also as a father, that these gifts resonate with you. It's just continued affirmation that Darius is guiding my steps. I know that. I know
Yeah,
that.
well, I asked you, tell me about him, and you talked about, how he shaped your life. And our children, we think about shaping our children's lives as parents. It's our job to shape them and form them. And I'll never forget the first time after my daughter passed, one of my cousins said, "Well, Shayna's your ancestor now." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Yeah, when people pass in spirit, they become your ancestors." And so, our children are shaping our lives. And, we are, I was talking with a client the other day. She was talking about like the legacy, of her son, who was a little bit younger than your son when he passed and a little bit older than my daughter. And I said, our children have more legacy than we realize. We don't really have to keep their legacy alive because they've made an impact while they were here, but we get to continue that through the work that we do that's inspired by them. So it's a great kind of a full circle thing, I think.
It really is, and it keeps you accountable, right? I am helping to carry out. He was destined to make an impact in this world, and he has. He
Yeah.
he he's been able to do that, not just with the years that he lived, but he's guiding that work, and it's an honor to be able to help carry that forward for him. And so it's purpose driven every day,
Yeah,
every day.
absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I interviewed a woman. But she was a girl when her brother passed, and they were in high school. I think she was a sophomore and he was like a senior, and he passed suddenly. And she went on and went into finance and stuff, but she really had this. She didn't have a passion for that, so she decided to start a jewelry company, and now she has a jewelry company that does legacy jewelry, and it's named after her brother. And she was telling me, I said, what do you think your brother would say to you if he could speak to you right now? She goes, he would say, I can't, you never thought you'd still be thinking of me all these years later. Cause she's like in her, I think, late 30s now. It's been like 20 years since he passed. So our loved ones, they do live on through us, and we get to make a choice as to, how we deal with it. And I love what you're doing, in terms of, continuing his legacy, carrying on his legacy, and doing inspirational work, in his name.
Uh, you also you understand the healing that comes with this, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I meet people all the time who, people, you know, love to hear stories of resilience through grief. And so they reach out on social media and through various networks. And, one of the things that you kind of opened with this, I want people to know that there's still hope on the horizon.
Hmm.
Um, the future looks different than I had originally planned. And, you know, his friends, they're all at the age now, you see pictures of them getting married and they're having kids and all these things that he never had the opportunity to do. But um, how I envisioned my life looking is different. Um, but no less impactful. And so finding people around you who support the pivot matters,
Yeah.
uh, and will support you in even encourage you to find ways to channel the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you said, it's different, as part of helping parents heal. A lot of times we'll talk about like people say, well, if I could choose to have them here, of course I would. And, the thing is, we don't know what our children's lives would have looked like, had they not passed. We don't know what our lives would look like had they not passed. But we do know that we can choose to make meaning from it, right? We can take what we've been given and do something with that, and it can be something beautiful. And I know it's really hard to hear this when you're in those. We talked about that in those initial stages of grief, that acute stage, I guess I would call it. You don't want to hear about this, and that's fine. I understand that, but what we can do is give people hope. We can offer up an example of like this is what can become of this, and you're a great example of that. And again, helping people to help other people through grief is a very honorable thing. So I appreciate what you're doing. So for people that are listening, and I told you before we started, I was gonna ask you this question. So anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about, anything you want to get out?
I think the only thing that I would like to say is that I am grateful for grit. And that's all. And I don't know where it came from because people ask me that all the time.
Hmm.
I'm grateful for grit. But what I will say is this: there was a moment in my grief where I said to my sister, and she reminds me this all the time, I have to find purpose in this. And
Hmm.
when that moment comes, no matter what difficulty in life that you're facing, when that moment comes, seize the call, seize the
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, seize the call. And Darius Anthony Torrance um, lived 28 years on Earth. The
Hmm.
world will never be the same
Right.
uh, because of what he added. I'm determined to reverberate that impact larger than he could imagine. One day we will reunite and he's going to say, Mom, my goodness, you
Yeah.
are something else. That's what I'm waiting on.
Yeah. I'm glad I asked you that question. I love that so much. The thing is about because people come to me all the time, they say, "What's my purpose? What's my purpose?" And as a coach and as a grief guide, I'm like, I can't tell you what your purpose is. 'Cause I don't think it's a singular thing. And you talked about finding purpose, and I'll take it a step beyond that. We can create purpose.
Mm,
So, sometimes people will look and say, "What's the lesson in this? What's the meaning in this? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to make with it?" And that's what you've done. You didn't find purpose. You created purpose.
mm,
And as you said, every one of us has a role here, and everyone's has a unique role.
mm,
So yeah, the world is not the same without them being here physically, but it's also not the same because they did leave when they did.
that's right.
So both things are true at the same time.
Mhm, mhm. You said that beautifully. Um, and so I'm inspired every day. I see grieving people doing all kinds of things. They're organizing walks. They're organizing meaningful communities on social media.
Hmm.
You know, um, they are finding ways to give back in ways that matter. And so, everybody's story is different and how they show up in the world is different. Um, I've come a long way from those days when I was sitting in my room, not answering calls, not answering texts, staring
Yeah,
at the wall. But I needed those days to
there's
get
a
to the
time for
bed.
that too.
That's
Yes,
right.
there
That's
is a
right.
time for that. Absolutely. Well, Kelly, we're coming to the end of our time. Remind people of how they can reach you, your website, and if people can reach out to you personally, if you want to give that information out, now's the time to do it.
Yes. So our website is thetimelypresence.com. Thetimelypresence.com. I am pretty active on LinkedIn. So Kelly Edmondson, that's Edmondson. And on Instagram, I am the dot Kelly Edmondson.
All right. Well, Kelly, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for what you're doing, and thanks to Darius for what he's done for all of us.
Yes, thank you for building this in Shanna's honor. I appreciated the time.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
Okay, you too. Thanks.